Welcome to another edition of Breaking News brought to you by Source Selection Soundbites. Today, we will discuss the case of the Aquila Fitness Consulting System, or Aquila provided by the General Accountability Office, or GAO. In this case, the U.S. Marshal Service, or USMS, had a requirement for physical readiness and wellness program services. Prior to solicitation issuance, the agency issued a sources sought notice that asked interested vendors to submit their business size and, if applicable, verified socioeconomic classifications, commercial and government entity code, existence of GSA schedule contracts, and a comprehensive capability statement to demonstrate how the requirements could be met. 5 of the 6 responses the government received were from socioeconomic small business concerns, and several of them indicated they had active GSA schedules. Given this feedback, the agency published the draft PWS on GSA's market research as a service platform to schedule holders. The agency had originally leaned toward a service-disabled veteran-owned small business set aside, but after receiving the market research report, the CO decided to do a woman-owned small business set aside. Therefore, the USMS issued the solicitation directly to 4 woman-owned small businesses. The agency explained that it provided the solicitation to these 4 vendors, consistent with the market research, to reasonably ensure at least 3 quotes were received from contractors who can fulfill this requirement. Upon learning of the agency's set-aside decision, Aquila filed a timely protest of the solicitation. Aquila protests the agency's decision to set aside the procurement for woman-owned small business concerns, challenging the agency's market research as inadequate under FAR Part 19 procedures. In this regard, Aquila alleges that the agency's market research was insufficient because it failed to determine whether the woman-owned small business vendors were capable of performing the FLET-C requirements. In addition, the protester argues that the agency did not determine that the vendors could perform at a fair and reasonable price as required by FAR 19. USMS maintains that it conducted adequate market research and reasonably set aside the procurement for woman-owned small business concerns. En route to finding against the contractor, the GAO noted that although the preference programs of FAR Part 19 small business programs are not applicable to FSS procurements, an agency may, at its discretion, set aside orders for any of the small business concerns identified in FAR Part 19. Accordingly, GAO continued, "Our office has previously concluded that FAR Section 8.405-5 does not require an agency to use the procedures under FAR Part 19 when choosing to set aside a procurement for a particular type of small business concern. We concluded that while this section of the FAR identifies the types of set-asides for small business concerns the agency may use and directs agencies to use the small business program eligibility requirements, it provides no other directions about using procedures from FAR Part 19. Outside of the types of set-asides identified in FAR 19, the FAR instructs the agency to follow the ordering procedures in FAR 8.4. Given the foregoing, the protest that an agency did not follow FAR 19 procedures to make the set-aside decision in the FAR 8.4 environment is an invalid basis of protest. Therefore, the protest is dismissed. Now let's address a few of the lessons learned from this protest. They include: 1. FAR 19 set-aside procedures are not applicable to FAR 8.405 discretionary set-aside procedures. 2. A capability assessment, a fair and reasonable price determination, or set-asides for socioeconomic set-asides before non-socioeconomic small businesses is not required under FAR 8.4, set-aside procedures, and 3. When setting an acquisition aside in the GSA schedule environment, the agency should use the rule of 3 instead of the rule of 2 to comport with FAR 8.4 procedures. In this episode of Source Selection Soundbites, we discussed the Aquila case and the nuances of small business set-asides in the GSA schedule environment. This concludes today's Source Selection Soundbite. If this video was helpful, hit the like and subscribe button to ensure you don't miss any new material. If you want more details on the subject, they are available on the Source Selection Answer app. It contains lectures, quizzes, court cases, sample documents, and more material that allows practitioners to quickly obtain actionable knowledge. Thanks for watching. See you next time.